Okay, I'm here to give you a couple of tips on piano voicings for jazz. First of all, a couple things to know. You always should have the third and the seventh in any chord that you play because that determines the quality of the chord. So for example, if you have a C major seventh, C major, and if you have a C major seventh chord, you can have the seventh and the third. Oftentimes there's a third note to make it a true chord, so you can just include the fifth. We'll keep it simple. There's other options, but let's just keep it the fifth. So you have 7, 3, 5, C major 7. To make it dominant, you just flat the 7th, C dominant 7, and to make it a minor 7, you flat the 3rd. Okay? Do that in any key. F major 7, 7, 3, 5, F dominant, F minor, B flat, major 7, dominant 7, minor 7, and so on. You can also reverse the third and the seventh. Okay, so you have 7, 3, 5. So you can switch the 3 and the 7. Then you have a leftover note, you can play the 9th. C major 7, C dominant 7, C minor 7. Okay? F major 7, 3, 7, 9, F dominant, F minor. B flat, 3, 7, 9, dominant, minor, and so on. When you do a chord progression, you can choose to do one voicing the whole time and it'll work just fine. So if you did a chord progression, for example, 2, 5, 1. Notice the 2 is minor and 5 and 1. So let's say we're in the key of C, because we all live in C, we're all born in the key of C. Okay, you did a 2 chord, and then a 5 chord, and a 1 chord. So keeping in mind that you have to have the 3 and the 7. Okay, here's the 2 chord, and you want the 3rd and the 7th. 7, 3, 2 chord, 5 chord. 1 chord. So putting it all together. Okay, again, that's a typical 2, 5, 1 progression. Now, to get a little more complicated, you could see that I'd have to move a lot. The voicings are just fine, but if you wanted to avoid moving and conserve spaces when you are moving from chord to chord, you can switch from 7, 3, 5 to 3, 7, 9. Okay, that's kind of the next step, but it also makes great voice leading. Still the same progression, 7 on the bottom, 3 on the bottom, 7 on the bottom. Okay? A good exercise to do is do the 2, 5, 1s either around the circle of fifths or chromatically. To give you an idea here. Okay, and that gives you can keep going. That gives you an idea. Next up, we're going to look at the blues progression. There are many different varieties to the blues progression, but we're going to talk about the 12-bar blues and a pretty typical version of the 1 chord, 4 chord, and 5 chords that are used in a blues progression. Okay, using what we learned about thirds and sevenths and sevenths and thirds, you can apply the same thing to a blues progression, okay? So let's say we're in the key of C again, key of C. Okay, so the first chord is a C chord. These are all dominant chords, by the way, so I flatted the seventh, dominant chords. And then the 4 chord would be an F chord. And then back to the 1 chord. Now I'm on the 4 chord, measure 5, measure 6, and then back to the 1 chord, C. And then I put a 2 chord here, okay? So if we're in C, the 2 chord would be D minor, 7, 3, 5. And then the 5 chord would be a G chord, and then the 1 chord. Okay? Remember, these are all dominant chords, and this is a minor chord, the minor 2. Okay? Now, if I was to play that in a progression, C, F, C. You see how my right hand is always staying in the same kind of position? It's a great way to do the blues. You're always going to be accurate. That's what guitar players do. They keep the same feel in their hand. 2 chord, 5 chord, 1 chord. Okay? Now, if I was to play that with a group, I would probably not keep the same chord structure. I would use some of those that are 7th on the bottom and some of those that actually have the 3rd on the bottom, okay? Just make smoother movement that way. So for example, C7, 7, 3, 5, and then I go to the F7. Instead of going up here, 7, 3, 5, I'm gonna do 3, 7, see it's the same note, 9. I'm keeping 2 of the same notes, almost. So you can see how changing some of the chords from 7 and 3 to 3 and 7. C, 7 and 3, F, 3, 7. See how close they are? That makes a lot better voice leading. So if I was to do that voice leading for the whole progression, see how close it is? 5 chord, sorry, 1 chord, 5 chord. Later on, as you get more advanced, the blues progressions can add different notes. 7 and 3 have to be there, but maybe you'll have 13. That's a common thing in blues. Sometimes you can add the 9th. Okay, sometimes there's sharp 9, flat 9, sometimes there's sharp 11s. It just gets into more complicated extensions, which you can practice and add as you get comfortable. Here is an example of a medium level, I guess. Good luck. Have fun.